Hello, welcome to Statecraft IAS and Social Perspectives Sociology in Newspaper series. In this series, we shall discuss daily news articles in sociological perspective and revise relevant sociology related UPSC mains concepts with the help of a newspaper on daily basis. In today's video, we have an article saying misinformation through a feminist lens. Sexism and online harassment prevent women from taking vocal stance and hinder progress. Now this social media thing comes under technology and social change chapter in our sociology syllabus under agents of social change unit in the first paper. Now we have studied the positive aspects of social media. Here in this article we can go through the negative fallouts of social media and relevant technology and negative fallouts in particular or in relation to women, that is gender. So going into the contents of the article, it says the online world amplifies the social norms of the physical world. See, we have seen Durkheim saying that schools act as miniature societies. Miniature societies are what schools according to Durkheim, because schools mimic the social aspects and what's all happening in society is mimicked and imitated within the schools. In that way, kids or children going to schools will try to learn what is happening in the society, how to behave in society, what is approved in society and what not is approved in the society. All these things they get to learn in the schools according to Sumner also. So now what happened? Now social media and online world has become miniature societies, because online world is just amplifying the social norms of the physical world. It is just mimicking what is there in the society. It is just being represented or being imitated by the social media. And more so, the concern here is that the aspects of society are amplified on social media. It is not just mimicked, they are mimicked or imitated in an amplified manner, in an exaggerated manner. See, if the gender stereotypes are there in the society, then social media shows that gender stereotypes multiple times. If misogyny is there in the society, then social media shows that misogyny in an exaggerated manner, in an amplified manner, with more impact on social media. So that's why online world amplifies the social norms of the physical world. Moreover, this isn't to say that men are not targeted online, but the attacks faced by both sexes are vastly different. See here, women are targeted online and also men are targeted online in the form of abuse or threat calls, threat to rape, threat to murder, etc. We also have morphed content, pornographic content on famous personalities who are women, etc. This kind of abuses happen against men also, but the amount of abuse happening against women is far more higher than that of women than that of men. Already participation of women is very low in social media when compared to men. It is almost equal to half of men's participation. Even then, the abuse against women is far greater than that of men. So this is one of the concerns in feminist perspective. In India, where gender disparity among internet users is high, we have seen here, women participation is almost half that of men. Here this author talks about a particular example here. This we can use in our exams also. Take for instance the type of misinformation used against Congress leaders Sonia Gandhi and Rahul Gandhi. Here author is trying to draw a comparison between mother and son, who come from the same socio-economic and political background. See, that means there is no difference between socio-economic and political background among them. No difference. They are almost equal. Mr. Gandhi is referred to as Pappu by his critics, which is a relatively smooth term or relatively not so harsh term to criticize. The usual misinformation targeting him questions his intellect, but the same cannot be said for his mother. Whether it's Hollywood actresses sporting bikinis misidentified as Miss Gandhi or a morphed photo that shows her sitting on a man's lap, she is portrayed to be an indecent woman. Here the question of indecency is arising, whereas when compared to his son, the question of intellect is arising. Women to understand her, undercut her politics. Miss Gandhi's position of power does not shield her from vulgar misinformation. See, this takes us to the question whether Andre Bataille's study of discrimination is relevant. Andre Bataille studied caste system in India and said that discrimination cannot be viewed only through the lens of caste. He approached Trinitarian approach and said that discrimination must be viewed along with class. This is economic status. Power, this is political power. And status, this is social status or one standing in the social hierarchy. Now in this, if we look into this particular example, Sonia Gandhi has class, she is economically empowered, she has power also, she has power almost equal to that of a prime minister of a country, she has better status also as she is highly positioned in the social hierarchy, but even then she is being discriminated because of her gender. Now in this particular perspective, can we say that Andre Bataille has missed some important concept or important dimension in discrimination like gender? Also we have some, this discrimination is not so particular, it is intersectional in nature. We have some actors like Safura Zargar, who is targeted for being a woman as well as a Muslim. That means dimension of religion has also been missed by Andre Bataille. Although both of them come under social status, but they have particular significance like gender and religion are far more profound in nature. The discrimination against particularly on gender and discrimination against religion is far more impactful. That impact is very high. It cannot be placed as a general concept under status. So this gender and religion must be studied differently and particularly as separate dimensions under discrimination by Andre Bataille. So moving on, the article says organized disinformation and sexism intersect with Islamophobia, casteism, religious bigotry and other forms of discrimination to threaten vocal women from minority communities. As always, women are expected to take precautionary measures instead of men being asked to behave. This is another gender discrimination in our society. We do not want men to behave, we want women to take precautions. This is a form of gender discrimination and is a consequence of patriarchy in our society. This is patriarchal behavior. Gendering misinformation should be part of feminist discourse, absolutely. Further, men are at the center of disinformation ecosystem in India, an ecosystem created by them and for them. While women also share false news, the number of men disseminating misinformation is higher for the simple reason that they are greater in number on the internet, almost double the female population. Men manufacture false news and also fall for such news. They are proof that women gossip more is a gender stereotype. One of the most recent incidents that exposes gender discrimination in India is the Riya Chakrabarti saga. This we can quote as another example in our essays and in our sociology answers. See why actor Sushant Singh Rajput was hailed as a self-made man without faults, but Miss Chakrabarti was trashed on television and on social media, both spaces dominated by men, as a gold-digging seductress. The whole episode was a reminder of deep-rooted internalized misogyny in the country. So this episode can be quoted as an example in our answers for stressing about internalized misogyny in the country. Why did they not show solidarity? Because patriarchal norms, while subordinating women, also give them the power to oppress women more vulnerable than them. This is one of the patriarchal norms. Misinformation and sexism have a symbiotic relationship. Misinformation piggybacks on sexism to discredit vocal women, and sexism uses misinformation to reinforce patriarchal norms. This is a symbiotic relation between misinformation and sexism. This we can write under technology and social change chapter, talking about social media, because social media, one of the fallouts of social media is misinformation, and this misinformation has particular symbiotic relationship with sexism, and this sexism we are concerned with because it is a social aspect. That way social media and sociology or social perspective and our society can be linked very closely. Sexism and misinformation intimidate women from taking vocal stands and are antithetical to a progressive society. This is self-explanatory. Women empowerment cannot be separated from a modern society. Yes, there is no extent to the reforms that women are capable of bringing, and progress can happen faster with solidarity. But women who don't conform to social norms are almost never supported, and the intersection of sexism and misinformation justifies their abuse. While social media gives a platform for women to raise issues, repeated abuse takes away that freedom. Now, though this is a political concept, it has some social repercussions, because freedom to women is crucial for women empowerment in society. That's why misinformation must be checked at the earliest to allow women to participate in the social aspects, to take their stand, to be more vocal in society, to freely express them what they believe and what they think, what their idea is. Only from that freedom emerges women empowerment in the society. Because if women are subjected to criticism and abuse online, that stereotype or that acts as prevention or deterrent for women to participate in more studies or more employment, in more education, etc. Hence, participation is being hindered because of this misinformation on social media, and this participation is very important for women empowerment. So, moving on to the next article. Here, this article talks about high dropout rate among SCs and STs. The dropout rate among scheduled castes or scheduled tribes students was disproportionately high in India's 72 centrally funded technical institutions between 2016 and 2020. While only 23% of those admitted were from the SC/ST communities, 31.5% of those who dropped out were from these communities. Also, ST students who dropped out formed 4.4% of ST admissions in the period, while the overall average was 2.5%. This talks about the high dropout rate compared to other communities among SC and STs. Dropout rate is high among them. This particular article we can link to caste and society in our syllabus. And in that particular chapter, we have Amartya Sen talking about participation. We already talked about women participation in the above article. This particular article talks about caste participation, caste-based participation. Amartya Sen says that people tend to participate more only when they have stable socio-economic status. Because the SCs and STs do not have stable socio-economic status, their participation is relatively low if we go by Amartya Sen's observations. The difference between the share of SC/ST dropouts and their share in admissions was relatively high in 5 IITs. The difference between SC/ST dropout rate and the non-SC/ST dropout rate was relatively high in the IISER institutes also. Here, this data point article shows some relevant data statistics showing dropout rate. See, it is 4.4% among STs and it is 2.6% among SCs. That means SC/STs form the highest proportion of dropout rate. Dropout proportion also, if you see, it is 0.9% and -7% among SCs and STs. Here non-EWS, OBC or SC/ST, it is only 0.3%. Here dropout rate comparison, if you see, it is among various institutions. This is not so relevant for our studies. And dropout proportion comparison, again this is in terms of various institutions, which is not so relevant for our syllabus. So the takeaway from this article is that this article, by linking it to the caste and society chapter in our syllabus, we can apply Amartya Sen's participation concept in this particular article and conclude that because SC/STs have lower socio-economic status and they have low terms of stability when compared to the other communities, their participation has been low. So to increase their participation in education and employment, their socio-economic status or social security must be provided to them. Because of lack of this security, people are dropping out from the participation in education and employment. If that social security is provided to SCs and STs, then we can ensure that their participation rate is high. Here in our country we have only social security to employees, but we don't have social security based on caste. That must be provided to ensure more participation among underprivileged sections. So that's all we have for today. If you like the content, please like, share and subscribe to Statecraft IAS. Thank you for listening. Have a nice day.